The next topic is the sexual reproduction in the plant. Sexual reproductions occur widely in the lower plants like Spirogyra through the process of conjugation and mucor by gametangial contact. In the mosses and the fern, there is formations of the motile male gamete in the antheridium. Motile means ability to move. So, the male gamete is formed inside the antheridium and the non-motile female ova in the archegonium, and the non-motile female gamete is present or formed inside the archegonium. It is followed by the union of male and the female gamete. So what happens is that in the fern and the mosses, the male gamete will swim towards the female gamete, and after that union of male and the female gamete will take place to form the zygote. As the result of union of the male and the female gamete, it results in the formations of the zygote and the reduction divisions meiosis to form the spore. So, by the reduction divisions from this zygote, the spore will be developed, and from this spore, the new organism will be developed. In this way, sexual reproductions take place in the mosses and in the fern. Sexual reproductions in the flowering plant. A flower can be defined as the reproductive structure of a flowering plant. A complete flower will have 4 sets of the floral part. So, in a complete flower, there will be 4 sets of the floral part. They are Calyx, Corolla, Andrecium, and the Gynoecium. The first, let's study about the Calyx, Corolla, Andrecium, and the Gynoecium. They are calyx composed of the mainly green sepals. So, the green structure which is present at the base of the flower are the sepals, also called as the calyx. Corolla composed of the brightly colored petals. So, the colorful part which is present above the sepals are the petals, also called as the corolla. Andrecium, the male part, consists of the stamen and composed of filament and the anther. So, this is the structure of the stamen. Here you will see anther and the filament, and the anther and the filament together are called the stamen. And inside the anther, what is present is the pollen grain. Andrecium, the male part, consists of stamen composed of the filament and the anther, and inside the anther pollen grain are present. And gynoecium, the central female part, consisting of a swollen bottom part called the ovary. Middle elongated part is the style, and the terminal part, which may be sticky, is the stigma. So this is the female part of the flower. Here you will see stigma, style, and the ovary. The stigma is sticky in the nature. The style is the elongated part, and the ovary, inside the ovary, what is present? Egg are present, and this whole structure are called pistil, and which make up the gynoecium. I take a hibiscus plant. So the green structure which is present here is the calyx, and it is composed of the sepal. The colorful part here is the corolla, which is composed of the petals. This is the yellow structure which is present here is the anther, and the stalk-like structure is the filament, which together make the stamen or the andrecium. Inside this yellow structure, pollen grain are present. That is, the pollen grain are present inside the anther. This is the stigma, and this stalk-like structure is the style, and inside this style what will be present? Ovary will be present, and inside the ovary egg are present. Basically, there are 2 types of the flower. The first one is the bisexual flower and the unisexual flower. So what is meant by bisexual flower and unisexual? Bi means 2. So if the flower have both the male and the female floral part, that type of the flower are called the bisexual flower. Here uni means 1. So if the flower have either male or androecium or either female gynoecium, those type of the flower are called unisexual flower. Flowers are generally bisexual in mustard, pea, China rose, having both male and the female floral part. So here in the China rose, in the pea, in the mustard, if you observe their flower, there will be presence of both androecium and the gynoecium, or we can say there is presence of both male and the female floral part. But in some flower like papaya and the watermelons, there may be presence of either androecium or the gynoecium. If there is presence of only one, which may be male or the female or androecium or the gynoecium, those are the unisexual flower. The male germ cell from the pollen produced by the anther unites with the female gamete. So we know that the pollen grain is present inside the anther, and this pollen grain, and when this pollen grain are released, what will happen? The pollen grain will unite with the female gamete which is present inside the ovary. The fusion of the germ cells or the fertilization give rise to the zygote. Once the pollen grain unite with the egg which is present in the ovary, it will result in the formations of the zygote, which is capable of growing into the new plant, and this zygote will develop into the seed, and this seed is capable of developing into the new plant. What could be the possible functions of the calyx and the corolla? Their functions is mainly for the protections of the floral sex organ and also act as a flag apparatus for the insect pollination. So we have learned that there is presence of the calyx and the corolla. So the functions of calyx and the corolla is that this calyx and the corolla protect the androecium and the gynoecium. Not only this, if the petal is very colorful, it helps in the attractions of the insect. For the process of fertilization, the pollen grain from the anther has to be transferred to the stigma. Si habdi kayo fertilization thok na bay damata nasai anther da yaw ba pollen grain da stigma da transfer to ba ma darka ba. There are two types of the pollination: self pollination and the cross pollination. So let's see what is self pollination and what is cross pollination. If the pollen is transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, kay gumba anther do na or pollen grain si anther do the stigma same flower gi stigma da transfer to ba, or different flower of the same plant, different flower do ba adu same kind means hibiscus the hibiscus ama da transfer to ba, it is referred to as self pollination. For example, in the hibiscus, if the pollen grain which is released from the anther is transferred to the stigma of the hibiscus plant, then those type of the pollination is called self-pollination. And cross-pollination, if the transfer take place between two different flower of two different plant, the process is called cross-pollination. Cross-pollination anther of the one pollen grain of one flower that is transferred to the stigma of the another flower, then that type of the pollination is called cross-pollination. One point you have to remember that in the cross-pollination, the genetic material which is present will combine and result in the formations of the seed. Pollination is generally done in nature by wind, water, insect or animal. So the transfer of the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the flower is done naturally, but with the help of the wind or water or insect or with the help of the animal. Artificial pollination, pollination by the human with some intention, is widely practiced and in economic plant for the productions of the hybrid. So artificial pollinations can also be done where we transfer the anther to the stigma and it will be covered for some time, and once the seed is formed, that seed is used for the development of the new plant. After the pollen land on the suitable stigma, the male gamete from the pollen is brought by the pollen tube, grows out of the pollen grain and travels through the style to reach the ovary. So here, once the pollen grain land on the stigma, which is sticky, what will happen? The pollen grain is brought by the pollen tube and travel through the style to reach the ovary. And inside the ovary, what will happen? The pollen grain will unite with the egg to form the zygote. Ovary manungda ka yawi egg yawi ba. So the egg as well as the pollen grain unite together to form the zygote. The zygote results from the unions divide several times to form an embryo within the ovule. The ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into the seed. We know that union of egg and the pollen grain result in the formations of the zygote, and this zygote will undergo several divisions to form the embryo, and this embryo is formed within the ovule. The ovule will convert into a tough coat which gradually converted into the seed. This is how the germinations take place and how the formations of the seed take place in the flower. Other floral parts like sepal, petal, stamen, and the style fall off. We have learned that the union of pollen grain and the egg result in the development of the zygote, which will form the seed. So once the formations of seed is complete, the parts like sepal, petal, stamen, and the style will fall off from your flower. The seed contains the future plant or the embryo. So when this seed is shown into the soil, providing the suitable nutrient and the water, this cell will develop into the new plant or the new individual. The next topic is the seed and the germination. Seed is the part of a plant which contains the young plantlet. That means the young future plant is present in the seed in the dominant and the resting condition. In dominant resting condition means when we provide the suitable nutrient and the water from the seed, it will develop into the new plant. But if the seed is kept in a dry conditions or in the normal conditions, it will not develop into the young plant. Can you get a seed in all the plants? Seeds are formed within the cones of the gymnosperm. In the gymnosperm, the seed is not covered with the ovule. Gymnos means naked, sperms means seed. So in the gymnosperm, you will see the naked seed which is not enclosed by the ovary. Inside the fruits of the angiosperm, angiosperm means the seed which is enclosed by the ovary. As the result of the fertilization, the seed may be covered by the ovule or seed may not be covered by the ovule. If the seed is covered by the ovule, then those group of the plant are categorized into angiosperm, and if the seed is not enclosed by the ovary, then those group of the plant are categorized into the gymnosperm. Now let's see the structure of the seed. A seed is surrounded by thick seed coat or the testa, providing protections against dehydration. Dehydration means loss of the water. So the seed is covered by the seed coat or the testa. The functions of seed coat or the testa is that the seed coat does not allow any loss of the water from the seed to the outside. A helium is a scar of the seed store. So inside the seed there is a scar which is called the helium. The embryo inside the seed consists of the plumule. So a seed consists of plumule, radicle, and the seed leaves or the cotyledon. This plumule will develop into the shoot system. The radicle will develop into the root system, and the seed leaves or the cotyledon. This cotyledon will develop into the leaves. Monocotyledon. Mono means one, di means two. Monocotyledonous plant like grasses and the rice have only one cotyledon, since in the grasses and in the rice there is presence of only one cotyledon. Dicotyledonous plant have two cotyledons. We know that di means two. So in a dicotyledonous plant, like in the seed pea, In the castor seed, there is presence of the two cotyledons. Endosperm is a nutritive tissue which may surround the embryo of the maize, rice, castor seed, etc. So, this endosperm is a tissue, and this endosperm provide the nutrient. Plant seed to na darkar oiba nutrient kay do kanana pi endosperm na pi ba. The endosperm provide the nutrient to the seed. Whatever the nutrient which is required by the seed is provided by the endosperm, or it may be absorbed into the cotyledons of the non-endospermous seed. Non-endospermous seed adi ka dui seed ki ayama space cotyledons na occupy to bodo. So in the non-endospermous seed, the endosperm may be found absorbed in the cotyledons. Example are pea, beans, etc. So this is the longitudinal section of the seed of the dicot plant and the monocot plant. This structure shows the bean seed, and this structure shows the maize seed. The next is about the seed germination. Seed growth or germination commences by the water entering the seed through the micropyle, and the testa absorb the water. So once the seed is shown to our field or to the soil, providing the suitable nutrient and the water will enter the seed through the micropyle and the testa. Testa means the structure which surround the seed will absorb the water. Once the water is absorbed by the testa will split and radicle. Radicle is the future root. Once the testa split, what will happen? The root system will start forming. Types of the germination. There are two types of the germination: hypogyl germinations and the epigyl germination. Hypogyl germinations occur in the maize, gram, bean, etc. when the cotyledons remain below ground and the plumule. Plumule is the future shoot system, and the plumule emerges by the elongations of the epicotyl. Here you see in this diagram that the cotyledons remain inside the ground level and the shoot system developed by the elongations of the epicotyl. Epigyl germinations occur in the castor, sunflower, etc. when the plumule and the cotyledon emerge above the ground by the elongations of the hypocotyl. The cotyledons functions as the leaf. So in the epigyl germinations, what will happen? The cotyledon as well, the cotyledon will be above the ground level, and the future shoot system will emerge by the elongations of the hypocotyl. So these cotyledons will be or will functions as a leaf in the epigyl germination.